Hello, boys and girls. Sorry, I just take a little snooze there. Well, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, guys and gals. Today, well, finally, Mr. Cuppy's finally doing another of this week's Mr. Cuppy's Weekly Read Aloud. And this week, I have got one of my personal favorites. This is one of my personal favorites when I was about your age, maybe a little bit younger. It's a great book, especially for nighttime. It's just one of those really wonderful books. So this book tonight is by a famous author called Maurice Sendak, and your parents or guardians, maybe some of your brothers or sisters, might know this book. This book is called Where the Wild Things Are. Where the Wild Things Are. So, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and sit back and relax and cool off as Mr. Cuppy reads you a nice book tonight. Now, please remember that this does not count as your nightly reading. You guys and gals are almost fourth graders, so I know you can read your own books for about 30 to 40 minutes each night. You guys are doing great, but for right now, let's just go ahead and sit back, relax, and I'll read us Where the Wild Things Are. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief was one of a kind. And another. His mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, "I'll eat you up." So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night, in Max's room, a forest grew. And grew. And grew. Until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around him. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. In and out of weeks, and almost over a year, to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars, and gnashed their terrible teeth, and rolled their terrible eyes, and showed their terrible claws. Until Max said, "Be still!" and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened, and they called him the most wild thing of all. And made him king of all wild things. "And now," cried Max, "let the wild rumpus start!" It's just a picture. The illustrations in this book are amazing. I have this in my library at school, so when you get a chance, please check this out. It's really, really great stuff. Another one. Now stop, Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all the wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then, all around from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, "Oh, please don't go! We'll eat you up! We love you so!" And Max said, "No." The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year, and in and out of weeks, and through a day. And into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the story Where the Wild Things Are. If you've never gotten a chance to read this book on your own, I highly suggest that you read this book. Now, a lot of you are older brothers and older sisters, and not all of you, but some of you have some younger siblings. Well, one thing that I think that we want to start doing as almost fourth graders is starting to read to our younger siblings. Try to reading to other people, maybe even an older sibling, maybe even a parent. Because when we read to ourselves, that's great. It's awesome information for our brains. But sometimes when we read, we kind of make some stuff up, or we're not sure what's happening, so we just kind of make it up. But I've noticed that if you read out loud, even to yourself, even to a smaller sibling, to a parent, you catch yourself when you make a mistake instead of just skipping over it. So you might want to try reading a book to a younger brother or younger sister. They would love it. Like we were talking about earlier about how younger kids sometimes mimic their older siblings. Well, that's because they just want to be like you guys and girls, because you are their heroes. You're really cool to them. So maybe you can surprise them with saying, "Hey, Billy Joe Jr., why don't you come on down and sit with your big brother, Billy Joe, and we can read a book, or I'll read you a book." They would love that, boys and girls. If you have a chance, they would really love Where the Wild Things Are. Well, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in this week to Mr. Cuppy's Weekly Read Aloud. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Please remember, this does not count as your nightly reading. I still expect 30 to 40 minutes of nightly reading from you. But thank you for watching, and have a fantastic evening.